Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm thrilled to be back with you today because we're diving into a super important topic for anyone building AI agents with Voiceflow, that is chat assistance. So think about it. How do you make sure your AI agent remembers past conversations and provides a smooth, continuous experience for your users? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. We're going to break down three key persistence options: the local storage, the session storage, and the memory. I'll not only show you exactly how to implement each one, but also explain why you do choose one over the other, the pros and cons of each, and we will even test them live in the browser. So you want to build smarter, more user-friendly AI agents, you are in the right place. Let's jump right in and get started. So alright, let's kick things off with the local storage. This is the default storage or persistent option provided by Voiceflow. Let's take a look at the code snippet here. We can see that the addition here is this object here. Looking at the standard code, which everybody gets right from the integrations, this is what you get. But when you look at the local storage, the changes is that we add this. So this local storage, which is explicitly stated, is actually the same as the default one. So as you can see, all that we're modifying is the widget integration script here. We're adding in the assistant object and we are setting in the persistence as local storage. So this simple line of code tells Voiceflow widget to store the conversation history in the browser's local storage. This means that the conversation history will be saved even after the user closes the browser window and comes back later on. I'm going to paste this into my web developer platform and then afterwards I'll publish it. Okay, so I've just finished publishing. What we're going to do is that we're going to close the browser and then start a new. So now let's see the local storage in action. I've got our website here with the Voiceflow AI agent integrated, and I'm going to start by saying hello. So let's just imagine this is a customer support agent. So this is the history here. Now what happens if the user refreshes the page? And there you go. As you can see, even after refreshing, the chat history is still right there. The conversation persists. This is because the local storage saves the data even if the page reloads. The second scenario that I want us to look at is closing the browser and reopening the browser to see whether this conversation history will be there. So now let's take the step further. And what if the user closes the browser? So we just close the browser and then we have reopened it. Maybe like the next day that the person came back, and look at that. The conversation history is still there. When you click in different pages, you can see that it's still there. So we refresh, it's still there. We close and open, it's still there. So this is the power of the local storage. It truly persists across browser sessions, which makes it feel like a continuous interaction for the user. So finally, the next thing we want to do is to open a new tab to see what happens. So let's test it by opening a new tab in the same browser. You can see, notice in the new tab is the same conversation. The new tab is the same conversation. Is the same conversation. The various tabs are sharing the same conversation history. So you've seen the local storage in action. It's really great for scenarios where you want a long-term or continuous conversation experience. So think about some of the use cases like customer support agents, where this local storage is quite ideal or often ideal. So users might come back to your site multiple times over days, over weeks to resolve an issue. Keeping the conversation history allows them to pick up right from where they left off. And this provides a context and avoids them having to repeat information. One other place or use cases is e-commerce assistant. So if you have an AI agent which is helping users with shopping, remembering past interactions can be very super helpful. The agent can recall previous product recommendations, the user's wish list, or even the abandoned cart. And I guess this leads to a more personalized fast and efficient shopping experience. Another place is learning platforms. So for educational platforms, the local storage can help you to track progress, can help you to maintain the context within the learning models, as well as if a student leaves in the middle of the lesson, they can return later and the agent will remember where they were or what they were learning. And this can also be useful for onboarding. The user navigate away and come back later, they can still chat with the agent and it will still remember. So really the advantages of the local storage is that it's a long-term persistence. Conversations are saved across browser sessions, which offers a very true continuous experience. So this leads to a better user experience, right? Because users don't have to start from scratch every time they interact with your agent. Also, it maintains the context because it still has the previous history there, which allows for a more natural and relevant interactions. And we can see that it's able to work across multiple session interactions that the person has. So this is good. So what are the disadvantages? So the downsides is, I think the number one is privacy. So data that is stored within the local storage persists until it's explicitly cleared by the user or the website. So you need to be transparent with your users about what data you're storing and how you're using it. And I guess there is also some storage limitations as we keep on storing data for some conversation at a larger scale. And this can be very challenging for users. While developers can implement ways to clear the local storage data, for the average user, it's not always immediately obvious how to clear it themselves, which could be a privacy concern for some. And sometimes this particular chat here can actually contain outdated information. So imagine this is a product recommendation agent and it's provided a cost for a tomato as $10, and then you updated your prices in the knowledge base as $5, and the user comes back and then this conversation history has $10, and then they want to continue the chat. Because the previous conversation provides context for the new conversation, it may hallucinate by saying that it's still $10 even though the knowledge base has $5 as the new knowledge. So there has to be some proper versioning in order to help this state of affairs. So let's move on to our second option. The second option here is the session storage. So I'm gonna paste that into my website builder and then I'm gonna publish that. So this session storage offers a middle ground in terms of persistence. Again, the code is very similar. The only difference here is that we've changed the session storage instead of local storage. So the key difference is that the session storage only lasts for the duration of the browser session. So I'm going to start a new conversation. And then I'm going to ask it. So the first scenario that you test in this is to refresh the page. Okay, so that's a very good answer there. So just like the local storage, when we refresh the page, you will see that the conversation history remains, right? So the session storage persists across page refreshes within the same session. Also, let's try and close. So we're gonna close this. We're gonna close and reopen the browser. So here's where the difference is. After closing and reopening the browser, you can see that the conversation is gone and it has reset. And this is because the session storage is tied to the browser session. So once you close all browser tabs or windows associated with that session, the session storage data is cleared. So the next thing is I'm going to have a chat with it and then I'm going to open new tabs. New tab here. So this is a new tab. So you can see that the tab starts a fresh conversation, right? So it has its independent conversation. Meanwhile, this is the history here. In a new tab, it doesn't have it. But when you are in different pages, it still has it. Even after refresh, as we did in the first one. Here, it still has a conversation history. It just doesn't come in the new tabs. Okay, so you can see that the session storage provides persistence within a session, but it's automatically cleared when the session ends. This makes it ideal for different kinds of use cases. And I guess one of the top ones is for shopping assistants. Session storage can be a great choice in this particular scenario when you're doing shopping or shopping carts, and you want to remember that the user is what the user is during their current shopping session, and that their product recommendations that they have made, all of that can also be remembered. But once they are done with the shopping and they've closed the browser, you might not need to remember that information for their next visit. The other part is when you're filling in a form, you also just want it to be available, or the session to be available at that point in time, after they fill in the form and then they are done, or they refresh the page by mistake, they still have that information, especially if they are filling in a 15 item form or questionnaire and they've got into 13 and then they refresh the page. You still refresh the page like that, you still want them to be able to still continue filling in the form. So in that part, you could use a sessionStorage to help. Also, when you are doing support tickets, usually at the initial stage, you might use sessionStorage. You can capture the initial problem details, the user information within the session. If the user has to refresh or briefly close and reopen the browser while filling out the initial ticket details, they won't lose their progress. However, for long-term ticketing and tracking, you do have to use a bit more persistence at the back end, not just the browser-based storage or even the local storage. The next thing we want to look at is the pros. We've looked at the use cases for the sessionStorage. Let's look at the advantages of the sessionStorage. The sessionStorage strikes a good balance, right, between persistence and privacy. It provides persistence while the user is actively engaged in the section, but it's automatically cleared when the session ends, which is better for privacy than local storage. Also, that's an automatic cleanup after the session. So this automatic cleanup is a major pro. You don't have to worry about managing long-term storage of conversation history data within the browser. And this is also good for temporary data. It's ideal for storing temporary session specific data that is not needed beyond the current session. So considering all these benefits, you may ask, what is the main con for this, right? The main con is that conversations are lost when the browser is closed. If users expect to return later and pick up from where they left off, the sessionStorage won't provide that experience. And there is no retention of conversation history across different browser sessions. One other thing that you may want to consider is that for returning users, the AI agent will have no memory of past interactions, which might be less personalized or efficient if they frequently interacted or interact with your agent. Also, we're going to look at the next one, which is the memory. So let's close the browser, going to the next one, the memory. We're going to copy the snippet. I'm going to paste the snippets in my website development platform, and then I'm going to publish it, and then I'm going to open the browser. So finally, let's talk about our third persistence option, which is memory. So this is the simplest and least persistent of the three. As you might guess, in this particular code here, we simply set persistence to memory. With memory persistence, the conversation history is only stored in the browser's memory and is not saved to disk like local storage or sessionStorage. This means it's the most privacy focused option, but it's also the least persistent, right? Let's see how it behaves. So let's go back to the site and type something like, tell me about your company. So just like the other scenarios, we're going to first refresh the page as the test scenario number 1. So this is the outcome of what it gave, and let's refresh for test 1. And boom, right? The conversation is gone. It's completely reset with memory persistence. So even a simple page refresh wipes the conversation history. It obviously maintains that history if you haven't refreshed the page. But if you're in the same page, if you are in multiple pages within the same tab, it has the memory there. So the next is that we're going to close and reopen to see what happens. So I've reopened it. So what we're going to do is you're going to open a new tab just like the others. So this is the history that we have here. Let's open the new tab. So opening a new tab will also start a completely fresh conversation. So each new tab and each page loads gets a brand new and empty conversation history, as you can see. So memory persistence is all about no persistence. This might, I think, at least persistent across pages, yeah, but not tabs or refresh or close. So this might seem counterintuitive for persistence video, but there are definitely valid use cases where you don't want to persist conversations. And this is where the memory persistence shines. So for demo assistants, especially those embedded on public facing websites for showcasing capabilities, memory is often perfect. You want each user to have a fresh, clean demo experience without any lingering conversation history from previous users. One other place you may want is during development and testing. Memory persistence can be very useful. You want to start each test with a clean slate, and you don't want test conversations clustering up persistent storage. One other thing is that if privacy is paramount and you are dealing with persistent information, memory offers the maximum level of privacy because no conversation data is stored persistently in the browser. The conversation history is essentially ephemeral. So another place you may want memory is public kiosk or shared devices. For AI agents deployed on public kiosk or shared devices in libraries, airports, etc., memory is often the best choice. You absolutely don't want to persist conversations from one user to the next on a shared device due to the privacy and security concerns, right? So from this background, I guess that we can easily tell that the biggest pro for the memory is the maximum privacy. No conversation data is persistently stored in the browser, no storage consent. You don't have to worry about storage limits or managing stored conversation data at all. Each conversation starts with a fresh, clean slate, which can be ideal for certain use cases or demos or testing. Also, it's the safest option when dealing with sensitive or confidential information. What are the disadvantages of the memory? The major con is the lack of persistence. When you are still going in different pages, it's still there. It's when you open a new tab or you refresh or close the browser, that's when you lose the persistence. So at least it has the least persistence, which can be frustrating for users in many scenarios. So users might have to repeat information and questions every time they interact with the agent, leading to a less efficient and potentially frustrating experience. One other disadvantage is that if users expect to be able to return to the conversation later, memory persistence will definitely not meet those expectations, and this can lead to a poor user experience. Also, the AI agent has no memory of past interactions, limiting its ability to provide personalized or context-aware responses over time. So, okay, yeah, we've covered all three of these. So let me give you a simple guide to help you decide which one to use, right? Choose local storage when your priority is long-term user context and a seamless continuous experience is needed, right? So it's best for scenarios like these ones listed here. Also, you may opt in for the session storage when you need a balance between persistence and privacy, and your AI agent is designed for tasks that are needed to be completed within a single browser session. So these are examples of the use cases that you may use the session storage. Also, we have the memory. So you can select memory when maximum privacy is paramount or you need a fresh start for every interaction, right? And these are ideal use cases that you may want to use it. So before you decide and implement, here are a few practical tips to keep in mind for choosing the right persistence strategy. So number one, test. Always thoroughly test your AI agent with each persistence type on different browsers, devices, and make sure that it behaves as expected in various scenarios that the user experience is smooth. Also, the second is to prioritize user experience always. Think about what makes the most sense from the user's perspective. Would they expect the conversation to persist? Would they be frustrated if it resets unexpectedly? Choose the persistence type that aligns with their expectations and make their interaction as seamless as possible. The third one is that you have to be extremely mindful of privacy, specifically the local storage. right? Be transparent with your users about what data you're storing and why. That wraps up for our deep dive into Voiceflow agent persistence. Choosing the right persistence type is absolutely key to developing effective and user-friendly AI agents. By understanding the nuances of the local storage, the session storage, and the memory, you can have more informed decisions that will significantly improve your agent's performance and user satisfaction. If you found this video helpful and informative, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more Voiceflow tutorials and AI agent development tips. Also, don't forget to check out the links in the description below for more resources. And if you're looking for expert help with your AI agents projects, visit nexusflowinnovations.com. We'd love to work with you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.